Alright, so since it's still summer, I figured we could continue with some more barbecue recipes while we still have some time to grill under the hot sun. Now, this dish used to be on my menu way back in the day, and it was easily the best-selling dish I had. It was also the easiest and cheapest to make, which made it great for the restaurant. So today I'll be showing you how to make galbi, or Korean barbecue short ribs. And since you seem to like when I do a few different versions of things in my videos, I thought I'd show you two different ways to do galbi. One being a classic thin-cut bone-in, and the other being a boneless that requires a little bit of butchering. These aren't generally common cuts of beef you'll find in most stores, so your best bet is to go to a butcher shop and ask for a Korean or Hawaiian cut of short ribs. There are a few different terms for this cut, but these are probably the two most common. They're not the cheapest cut of beef, but they're definitely not the most expensive either. They're also easily one of the most flavorful cuts of beef by far, but the unfortunate part is most people just opt to braise short ribs, which, don't get me wrong, can be a great way to do them. The problem is you lose a lot of that nice beef flavor in the process, kind of like cooking a steak well done. Side note, please don't cook your steak well done. Please? Anyway, we'll only be cooking the short ribs for a few minutes each side, so they'll end up being more on the medium side. As always, exact measurements will be in the description, and if you're enjoying these videos and want to stay up to date on modern Korean cuisine, hit that subscribe button. And with all that being said, let's make some galbi. I got these from a local butcher shop here in Winnipeg. When asking for Korean-style short ribs, try to get them between a 1/4 inch up to 1/2 inch thick. Any thicker and they won't be as tender. I'll usually do around 2 ribs per person depending on how meaty they are. I'm going to be doing these in the style of a Korean barbecue, but if you're looking to just do them as a dish all by themselves, I'd pair them with some kimchi fried rice, which was how I had them on the menu. You can check out the link at the top to learn how to make some killer kimchi fried rice too. So the main difference between these short ribs and the standard ones you'd get at the store is they're sliced across the bone and have a nice ridge of fat around the edge. Since these aren't something you can butcher at home unless you have access to a bone saw, there's not much to do with them, so we'll move on to the other cut. Now, this thick beauty is a full beef short rib, and again, you'll most likely have to go to a butcher shop to get one, but they're also pretty common in most Asian markets. You can see this one has 3 large bones in it, which we'll be using to mark our portions. There's also a bunch of silver skin on top that we'll take care of in just a bit. With cooking in general, having a sharp knife is crucial, but it's even more so when it comes to butchering. It's also much safer, so use the sharpest knife you have. The longer and thinner the better. We'll start by identifying exactly where the bones are and slicing in between them, giving us 3 short ribs. Each one of these short ribs is going to yield about the same amount of meat as 4 of the Korean style cut. And since I do my recipes for 2 portions, we'll only need the 1. The first thing we'll do is clean off the silver skin. Try not to remove any unnecessary fat because fat is flavor, and just focus on the silver skin. Pressing firmly but gently on the beef, start by making a slice just underneath where the silver skin starts. Then use the flap of silver skin as a handle and pull back on it just enough to reveal where the silver skin connects to the muscle and continue to slice. Try using the heel of the blade first, and in long, smooth motions, slice until you're at the tip of the knife. This will give you a much cleaner and more even cut. Next, we'll remove the bone. The bone in short ribs is fairly flat and wide, so it's pretty easy to remove. You can also see where it runs down the side of the short rib too, because of the amount of fat and silver skin it's connected to. Take the heel of your knife and make a slice just below where the bone is. Once you have that initial cut, it's simply a matter of running your knife along the bone, using it as a guide. To do this safely, place the palm of your hand on top of the short rib, then spread your fingers outwards and upwards. This will allow you to firmly hold the rib down without cutting your fingers off. Unless you're into that kind of thing, I don't judge. Another little side note, don't throw away any of the scraps from this. Throw them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them for making beef stock or soups like Vietnamese pho, which I'll probably do a video of down the road. Now that we've deboned the rib, we'll go ahead and clean off the remaining silver skin on the bottom. The process is the same as before. Once the short rib has been deboned and cleaned of silver skin, we can start to slice it up. We're aiming for around the same thickness of the Korean cut, about a 1/4 inch. The technique is still the same. Use your palm with fingers up and out to hold it down. Then use the heel of your blade in long, smooth slicing motions to the tip of the knife. If you don't have a lot of practice butchering or have never done it before, don't be scared. It's much easier than it looks, and like all things in life, it just takes time and practice to learn. I was terrified the first time my sous chef showed me how to clean a beef tenderloin at one of my early cooking jobs, but thankfully she was patient and a great teacher, and by the time I was done, it didn't seem as daunting of a task. So if your cuts are a little wonky and uneven, don't stress about it. Just say it's rustic and artisanal. Repeat the process with the remainder of the short rib. I've been debating whether or not to add music to the videos. I've had people message me saying they like the natural sounds of me cutting and chopping, but I've also had people tell me they think the addition of music would be a nice touch. So tell me what you think by leaving a comment down below. Once all of the short rib is nice and thinly sliced, we're going to score them. This will tenderize them further and also allow the marinade to adhere better to them. Essentially all we're doing is making shallow cuts on a diagonal all along the short rib. Just be careful not to go too deep or all the way through. You want to keep it about halfway through the rib. Then turn the rib around and make cuts going across or perpendicular. So now we're left with 2 even cuts of short rib, one bone-in and one boneless. Short rib is a very tough cut of beef, so the key to making it tender and juicy is a marinade. But because it's so tough, this isn't something you can marinate for an hour and call it a day. It needs a minimum of 12 hours to be effective. Seriously, I can't stress this enough. Don't rush it. It's best to plan this a day ahead of time. Now, like pretty much all of my recipes, this is not traditional, but it still respects the origins of the dish. You'll need a food processor to make the marinade, but a blender works best, as you want it as smooth as possible. Roughly chop 1 large onion and a Granny Smith apple. You'll also need 5 large cloves of fresh garlic and about 3 tablespoons worth of fresh ginger. Quick little tip when it comes to peeling ginger, use a spoon. If you use the edge of a spoon to scrape away at the skin, you'll only remove the outermost layer, leaving the flesh untouched. It also makes it easier for cleaning the skin off around the little nubs so you don't lose any. Add the cut up apple, onion, garlic, and ginger to the blender. And to that we'll add half a cup of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of sesame oil, 3 tablespoons of rice syrup, 1 teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper, half a cup of brown sugar, and 1/3 of a cup of pineapple juice. Start the blender on a lower setting first just to begin to break it up, then crank it to full and puree everything. So this is a marinade I've literally made hundreds of times before, but as I was pureeing it, I couldn't figure out why it looked so pale. That's when I realized I forgot the most important ingredient, gochujang. Which is even funnier considering I have the gochujang sitting right there off camera. So to that, add 2 heaping tablespoons of gochujang, and continue to blend until everything is nice and smooth. Place the short ribs in a Ziploc bag or metal insert. If you use plastic, it will definitely become stained red afterwards. Then add the marinade. You can also do a large batch of short ribs and place them in Ziploc or vac seal bags with the marinade and freeze them. This way you'll have Korean short ribs ready to go anytime. Using gloves, make sure the ribs are thoroughly coated, then cover with plastic wrap and refrigerate for a minimum of 12 hours up to 3 days. Now that the short ribs are done marinating, we can get them ready for the grill. Take them out one at a time and gently remove any excess marinade. Try not to remove too much as the marinade will act as a barbecue sauce of sorts because of the brown sugar and rice syrup, and they'll get nice and caramelized. Just like in the last video, I'm using a charcoal kettle grill, so the instructions will be for that specific style of grill. Because we're cooking these very quickly, you're going to want to get your grill as hot as possible. I filled my chimney starter about 2/3 full of briquettes. I'm also going to be throwing some wood chips on top to cause some flare up and to give the beef a more natural wood smoke taste. Lumped charcoal would also work very well, I just didn't have any at the time. Once you've got some solid flames happening, start adding your short ribs directly onto the heat. Because we're doing them right on the flames, they're only going to take about 2 to 3 minutes per side. You basically just want to have some color and char. I also like to work in batches when I do this, starting with the bone-in ribs, then finishing with the boneless. Once all of the short ribs are nice and charred, take them off the grill and let them rest for a few minutes before slicing them. This will also help to ensure they stay nice and juicy. And that's it. Kalbi, Korean barbecue short ribs. Serve them up with some rice, kimchi, various pickles, banchan, and some cold beer. I'll be doing a couple videos in the near future covering some of my favorite banchan or Korean side dishes. Thanks for watching. If you don't want to miss out on any of my modern takes on Korean and Asian food, hit the subscribe button and leave any questions or suggestions you might have in the comments. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook for more content.